Did they make any mistakes back then?
Oh, talking about my artist?
Talking about Baby and Slim. When now, if you were Lil Wayne's manager, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you were, did you see any missteps now that you look back?
You know what I be telling my dude? I be like, man, now that I'm in charge of the things I'm in charge of, I kind of look at it like it was impossible to do what they did for just two guys. You know what I mean? Like, man, I deal with, I be about to bite somebody's head off behind a hotel room. You know who Baby was? He's a millionaire from the streets. And in New Orleans, you know, that name way before there was a rap, before there was a Cash Money Records, that name held weight. You know, my mama went to school with him. My mama was so scared for me to even be involved with him. You know what I mean? All she would say was like, boy, that boy was 14 with $1 million. She was scared of him.
You and Wayne had like a kiss thing going on.
Facts. I know you got a child, you probably kiss him. You probably got a son and you kiss him.
Yeah.
You heard me? I always looked at Wayne as my son, and I always looked at it like, because I was in the streets, and I thought this might be the last time they ever see me. That's where that shit started from, and I always today look at Wayne as my child. I was his father when he didn't have a father, since he was 9 years old.
Right.
And I love him like my own, and I give my life for him, and I'll take a life for him. My situation with Wayne, that hurt me more than anything, because I love that nigga, and I meant nothing but right. I thought I did right. I changed his life. I changed his mama's life. I changed everything about it, and I smoothed that out. I just hated that me and him went through it. Anything else but Wayne, because I thought, in my mind, I wanted to add some niggas to what he was doing, because I see he a work slave. Wayne an animal. So I went and got thug enough and started Rich Gang. I was confused, but at the same time, that's one situation I wish never happened. But I'm blessed that that's past me. Man, and one of these days, I just went to his house. Moolah, let's get this shit over with. I don't like the way it's feeling. I went to his house, New Year's Eve. I said, let's put this shit behind us. How much you want? That could say 50, all right? You had that shit in the morning. And we did that, and that was over with. I ain't never took from them niggas. I always bless niggas.
But why niggas keep saying that shit, though? You know what I'm saying? Why niggas keep saying that shit, bro? Like, everybody, producer, all these folks be like, man, nigga don't pay, bro.
Wait, bro. I had some incidents early on.
Yeah.
Because I was really young in this shit. I ain't know no better. But every problem I had, I cleared it up.
Oh, you saying any nigga that ever fucked like they got fucked
I
over?
cleared it up.
Yeah.
I paid any nigga that got... You heard me? Because I was young, bro. Remember, I'm telling you, I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
So a lot of shit happened early on. I just ain't know. But any nigga that had any problem from my son on down, and I gave him 50 million, I cleared it up, brother. Because I ain't want my name like that, especially with Wayne. That's like I'm nothing without this dude. Like, that I didn't want, but it happened, but I aired that shit out.
Yeah.
What's the year that Cash Money started?
I came home from jail in 1989, December 10th. I started my label, got my federal tax ID number February 10th. I signed with Universal 1997, May 10th.
And still Universal's a partner?
I've been there 23 years. Same team.
You've been getting money for 23 years from Universal. Them checks must be looking crazy.
Just to keep it G with you, bro, I done made $2 billion with Universal.
With Universal?
Yeah.
So,
$1 billion of the dollars I broke down with Wayne, Drake, and Nicki.
And now is Drake still signed to Cash Money? Are they all three still technically signed?
We're in business together for life.
Okay.
It's a long time.
When you cutting checks like that, ain't no nigga going nowhere.
All right.
Money long, nigga strong.
That's
Most people heard the clip. Few people actually processed it. Lil Wayne, one of the most celebrated rappers of all time, casually telling a story from his childhood. A story that sounded confusing at first, almost joking, almost throwaway. But once you really listen, it doesn't sound like a joke at all. It sounds like a kid describing something he never fully understood, something he was never supposed to experience in the first place. And that moment everyone brushed off, that wasn't the whole story, because long before the Grammys, the money, the legacy, and the crown, there was a child from New Orleans who learned very early that success sometimes comes with a price nobody warns you about, and the question is no longer what happened. The real question is how it was allowed to happen in plain sight. Before the fame, How before the label deals, before the myth of Lil Wayne, there was Dwayne Michael Carter Jr., a kid growing up in Holly Grove, one of the roughest parts of New Orleans. His biological father wasn't around. That absence matters more than people like to admit. When a child grows up without protection, without guidance, they start looking for it anywhere they can find it. Wayne's mother did what she could, but New Orleans in the early 90s wasn't forgiving. Violence was everywhere. Poverty was normal. Survival was the goal, not dreams. So when a flashy, confident, powerful man entered Wayne's life promising opportunity, stability, and direction, it didn't look suspicious. It looked like rescue. Brian Birdman Williams didn't just present himself as a businessman, he presented himself as family, as someone who could protect a talented kid from the streets. And in that environment, that offer didn't raise alarms. It raised hope. But what nobody talks about enough is how easily hope can be used against a child who has nothing else to hold on to. Wayne was signed to Cash Money Records when he was just 11 years old. Let that sit. 11. While most kids were worried about school, friends, and growing up slowly, Wayne was being placed into adult rooms with adult expectations. Studios, contracts, grown men calling shots about his future. The Hot Boys formed. Juvenile, BG, Turk. Wayne, the youngest by far, suddenly became part of a machine designed to make money, not raise children. And once that switch flipped, childhood ended. When you're that young, you don't know how to say no. You don't know what boundaries are supposed to look like. You trust the people who claim they're guiding you, especially when they're feeding you, housing you, praising you, and calling you son. Wayne wasn't just learning how to rap. He was learning how to survive in a world where approval meant everything. And that's when the dynamic shifted from opportunity to dependency. Birdman began telling the world he adopted Wayne, not metaphorically, literally. He called him his son in interviews, on stages, on camera. Wayne embraced it fully. He returned the energy, defended it, lived it. He tattooed BM Jr. on his chest. That's not branding, that's identity. Wayne even dropped Carter Jr. from his professional name because, in his words, his biological father meant nothing to him. In interviews years later, he made it clear the man who created him didn't raise him. Birdman did. But here's where the psychology gets complicated. When a child replaces one parent with another, especially under conditions of power and control, loyalty becomes non-negotiable. Questioning the relationship starts to feel like betrayal. And that father-son label did more than shape Wayne's identity. It shielded Birdman from scrutiny, because once someone is framed as family, outsiders hesitate to ask uncomfortable questions. And that hesitation mattered. For years, there were moments people noticed, but didn't know how to react to. Moments caught on camera, televised, archived, a kiss here, another there. Not quick cheek pecks, not casual gestures everyone shared. Moments that made audiences shift in their seats and say, "Oh, that feels off." Birdman explained it away publicly. Said it was love, said street life was dangerous, said he wanted Wayne to know he cared. On the surface, it sounded emotional, protective, almost believable, until people started noticing something else. This behavior wasn't common across the label. Other artists didn't experience it. It wasn't a Cash Money thing. It was a Wayne thing. And when multiple people from the industry independently say, "I saw it and it was weird," patterns start forming whether anyone wants to acknowledge them or not. But what happened on camera was only a fraction of the story, because behind closed doors, things were darker. In a 2009 documentary, Wayne told a story from when he was 11 years old. The cameras were rolling. This wasn't leaked, this wasn't forced. Wayne chose to share it. He described being scared, surrounded by adults, in a kitchen. He referenced Birdman and others being present, and he described an experience that no child should ever be put through. An experience arranged by adults and treated like a moment of initiation. What makes this story even harder to process isn't just what happened, it's how Lil Wayne told it. Casually, half joking, almost like it was normal. That's not confidence, that's normalization. When something traumatic happens during childhood, especially when authority figures frame it as acceptable, kids don't label it as harm. They adapt, they survive, and sometimes they even defend it, because admitting the truth would mean confronting the pain. Lil Wayne later laughed about it in interviews, said he didn't see it the same way back then. But trauma doesn't need permission to leave scars. It just needs time. Years later, Lil Wayne connected dots himself. He revealed that at just 12 years old, 1 year after that kitchen incident, he attempted to off himself. 12. That doesn't happen randomly. Kids don't reach that breaking point unless something inside them is deeply fractured. Wayne survived, but survival isn't the same as healing. Not long after, substance use entered the picture. Self-medication, numbing, escaping. Wayne later spoke openly about dependency starting extremely young, and this is where people get uncomfortable, because they want to separate the art from the pain, but the pain shaped the art. The hyperproductivity, the emotional detachment, the humor masking darkness, the constant output. These aren't just personality traits, and they're survival mechanisms. When trauma isn't addressed, it doesn't go away. It finds new forms, and for Wayne, it followed him into adulthood, into business, into power struggles. By 2014, the tone changed completely. Wayne publicly called himself a prisoner of cash money. Think about the symbolism. The man who was raised under this label, the man who made it billions, the man who built careers for other superstars, now trapped, unable to release his own music, unable to move freely. And suddenly, the father-son narrative collapsed. Wayne filed a massive lawsuit, accusing Birdman and Cash Money of financial manipulation, missing money, withheld payments, ownership disputes. He owned nearly half of Young Money, but according to the claims, he wasn't seeing the transparency or respect that ownership should guarantee. And when someone finally starts asking questions, that's usually when relationships reveal what they really are. The conflict escalated, words turned hostile, situations turned dangerous. At one point, Lil Wayne's tour bus was shot at. Whatever people want to call it, business beef, personal fallout. It was no longer love. It was war. And the man who once called Lil Wayne his son was now pushing a replacement. Lil Wayne wasn't alone. Other artists left Cash Money with similar complaints: missing royalties, broken promises, exploitation. The pattern was familiar. Young talent from hard backgrounds, big dreams, little leverage, used during their most productive years, discarded when they pushed back. And this mirrors the personal side of Lil Wayne's story in a way that's impossible to ignore. Control when young, resistance when older, a conflict when aware. Eventually, a settlement was reached. Wayne regained his freedom, his masters, his ability to move forward. Public apologies were made, reunions staged. But reconciliation doesn't mean erasure, it just means the conversation got quieter. In his memoir years later, Wayne made one thing clear: Birdman wasn't family. That statement alone says more than pages of explanation ever could. When someone who once defined their entire identity around another person finally creates emotional distance, something shifted internally. Wayne doesn't openly accuse, he doesn't dwell publicly, but silence doesn't mean nothing happened. It often means someone learned how to live with the weight, and that weight shows up everywhere, in lyrics, in tone, in absence. Lil Wayne is one of the greatest to ever do it. That's not debatable. His influence shaped an entire generation. His output was legendary. His creativity was unstoppable. But the uncomfortable truth is this: some of that brilliance was forged through pain he never deserved. We celebrate resilience without questioning why resilience was necessary in the first place. We praise survival instead of asking why protection failed. And Wayne's story forces us to confront something bigger than one artist or one label. It forces us to ask how many other kids were placed in adult systems without safeguards. How many stories never made it out? How many mentors crossed lines that nobody wanted to talk about because the money was flowing? No criminal charges were ever filed. Public peace was made. The industry moved on. But documentation exists. Words were spoken on camera. Patterns were witnessed. And once you see them, you can't unseen them. This isn't about canceling anyone. It's about accountability. Because the real tragedy isn't that Wayne survived. It's that survival was ever required. Protection should have come first. And until the industry stops confusing opportunity with ownership, until it stops placing vulnerable kids into unchecked power dynamics, these stories won't stop. The names will change. The labels will change. But the cycle will continue. Sometimes the people who lift you up are the same ones holding the leash. And sometimes telling the full story, even when it's uncomfortable, is the only way to make sure it doesn't repeat. Protect the kids. And don't look away when the truth makes you uneasy. If you made it this far, you already know this story isn't really over.